Okay, let's move on. Okay, so another one is wireless network installation consideration. You know, for your WAP, we call it wireless access point. The placement should be strategically done. You know, so many times a lot of organizations would find they will use like a heat map to find areas that has the best signal for your organization. So they will use a Wi-Fi scanner to do like a mini survey and position where your wireless access point will be for your organization. So that's a common thing out there. So
And sorry, let me just add also one thing. Those wireless analyzer you can find out on the Microsoft side as well, on your Windows machine. If you're using cell phone, you can just type on your Play Store, and if you're using Android, or if you're using iPhone, you can go to your App Store. You can easily type Wi-Fi analyzer, and you can get a free version of it to see how does this work. This actually is something very important, by the way. So you can see those 2.4 gigahertz and 5 gigahertz Wi-Fi channel near you. So whenever you just go for new installation in organizations, you can see those icons on different colors. You can see the signal quality over here. So this is something very beneficial, by the way. So you can even also whenever you just install those new access points. So it will help you out how you can efficiently use that. How can you secure that for overlapping with other Wi-Fi signal as well. So this is something beneficial for your practical build. You should be aware of it, okay?
thank you. And one thing we would also do, folks, is some of these things like these tools, we'll send you a list of things you can also, play around. Just make sure you don't go to, you know, malicious sites that would expose you to more vulnerabilities. Okay, thank you, Nazar. All right, so wireless encryption, let's take some big takeaway here. The most common protocols around wireless encryption right now would be WPA2 and WPA3 are the most common ones. PA3 has a more robust, enhanced security out there, and it kind of mitigates some of the known vulnerabilities from the WPA2. So if I ask you in an interview which of this is more secured within WPA2 and WPA3, what would you tell me in a quiz? WPA2 versus WPA3. Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And I saw this in one of the quiz, so just heads up. Okay, Wi-Fi authentication method. You can see here we have the pre-shared authentication WPA2. It has a strong password share between client and access point. WPA3, personal authentication. It uses a more secure process and has stronger encryption than the WPA2. On the enterprise side, we have WPA2, WPA3. It uses centralized authentication server out there. Radius is a common one used for to manage network access control. So if I ask you, what is the protocol for managing access control? What do you say to me? The protocol for access control, a common protocol for access control. And anytime I ask those questions, they're the ones I saw in some of the past questions with you. So okay, got it. Okay, that's fair enough. EAP is a framework for authentication methods such as PAP, TLS, or TTLS. So most times when you see TLS, TLS, or TTLS, they are mostly, you know, secured encryption around your um, communication lines. So most of the time you'll see the authentication method, you'll see it in a quiz, but anytime you see TLS, TTLS, and you see some example in a bit. Network access control is a security solution that authenticates users and device before granting you access. So we don't see it on the surface, but it's at the back end, and it helps us to, you can see here, this is for, um, well, this is a tool out there you can see called Pocket Fence, and a scan is being conducted for Nexus, which is a vulnerability school tool, OpenVAS, another vulnerability tool out there. So it allows you to do before you do your scan, the network access control helps you to do appropriate authentication ahead of time. So Network security baseline, like we said earlier on, there would be a baseline for us to consider before any configuration around your network, wireless, the encryption, then your network access control. The bottom line is that there should be a minimum best practice we need to use before we set up any of this configuration. So that's the gist of it. Okay, so that's really the bottom line. Another big one for access control we should just take note of is firewall rules. Many times the firewalls really define what we allow or block within your traffic. Mostly it's based on the IP address, right? We all know some crazy IP address based on certain location. There are some IP address that cannot come to your environment because I'll give an example. There are some states that if the IP from example North Korea is coming to the US, naturally most environments will block it because the IP is coming from, you know, a location that is considered a risk to a nation, right? In that case, it blocks it, or to organization. The same thing for your ports, and it's just set of instruction the firewalls integrate with their security policies. Access control list is just mostly permission associated with your network devices like your router, switches, you know, how do we allow you or deny you access based on certain predefined rules. So always remember that anytime you hear firewall, ACL, mostly they are predefined rules. We've all agreed and said, okay, many times vendor will give you their best practice, right? Their baseline best practice mostly are good stats. You can override it. If it's something that is a big risk, they'll probably trigger you and tell you you must accept the risk, right? In that case. Okay. Um, Another one is screen subnets. It's a server, it serves as a buffer zone between the public facing server and any sensitive internal network resources. So a good example is, if you have facebook.com, it's connected to the public domain, then in between, it has a functionality that creates avatar or that stores PHI or PII, personal identification information. For that particular resources, there will be a buffer zone that protects that particular server because that server is hosting personal identification information. But the regular facebook.com that has all the general information that is not proprietary to you would be open to everybody, right? But for that particular server, it's restricted and it's subnetted to make sure that there's additional layer of security because of the sensitivity of information in that server.